via Skype, also live streaming via YouTube, and those who are connected via Facebook streaming. Each one of you is welcome to this live broadcast. Self-remembrance goes even deeper than your unconscious layer. When we talk about systematic going through the various layers, self-remembrance, the seed of self-remembrance is not buried in your unconscious. Instead, it is even deeper than that. There is yet another part of the mind which is called collective unconscious. Let me give you an example through a geometry. In geometry, when we have to draw a graph, we use only the x and y axis. We do not make a graph with 360 degrees. If we take the ordinate 0, 0 on the graph, 0, 0 ordinate means the ordinate, the value. Ordinate is the term used in geometry for the value of that spot or that point, because it is the beginning. The x-axis extends to the right of that point, and anything extending to the right has the positive value. And if the x-axis extends to the left, it has negative value. In the same way, from that point, if the line goes upward, in upward direction, it is known as y-axis. X-axis moves horizontally, y-axis moves vertically. And when this y-axis goes below the origin, this point where the ordinate or the value of x and y is 0, 0 is known as origin. All journey begins from here. You do a relay race, you begin your journey, you begin from a point where you can go in either direction. And as you move, as the graph moves, you progress. So the conscious layer is above the origin in vertical direction, and unconscious layers are below the origin in the negative range of y-axis. The origin where the value of the two ordinates x and y is 0, 0 represents the state where you are. Now, when the journey of the transcendence begins, you have to move. You have to move in the world of objects and beings. And when you are moving in the world of objects and beings, you respond sometimes according to your memory, according to your innerness. So when I say that the seed is not buried in your unconscious layer, instead it goes even deeper than that. I will explain to you this with a story. There was a man who was making the toys of wax, all different kind of toys, the animals, the lions, the tiger, the cat, the dog, and many other animals he used to make, and he was plying that trade. So one of his friend who was unemployed used to spend his spare time with him. He used to help him as well as he used to enjoy the creativity of his friend when he was making the toys out of the wax. Then it happened. The man got a job and he went away for a few years. After 10 years, he returns to this city, and the first thing he remembered his friend. Even while he was away, he remembered his friend. During this period of 10 years, the business trends changed. People were not interested anymore in wax toys. The trade was declining. He has to research and find the other ways and means of continuing his livelihood. He recognized that the demand for the candles is increasing. People are no more interested in wax toys. So there was one option for him to discard those toys, buy the new raw material, and start making the candles. But the wise thing was to use those wax toys, melt them, and after melting, discolor them by adding some substance and use it as a raw material. I was always interested in exploring certain things. I went on a cruise on a ship. I realized there was a photographer, and without even asking or a request for photograph, very liberally he was taking the photographs of the passengers who were on that cruise. When he had finished the pictures, taking out the pictures, he went in his lab, printed out these pictures, and put it on a display. So the commuters will come, choose the pictures and buy them. But if he has taken out 10 pictures of you, you may not want all those 10. You may want a few. So I asked him, you take out these pictures liberally Many times it happens all those pictures are not sold. Your raw material, that is the paper that you are using, the photographic paper, is wasted. He said, no, nothing wastes. When I take out the picture liberally and capture those commuters in certain moments using my photo, photographic skills, people like those photographs, they buy it. And those that are not bought, I ask, what do you do with that? He said, I process them back and reuse it. So nothing goes waste. Then I thought, is a technique. So what did this man do? He melted all those wax toys, used the chemical to discolor these so that they can again be colored individually to create the candles of different colors and size. Now his trade was started growing, his livelihood continued. Then his friend comes back, and when he came back, first thing he asked about the wax toys, and he brought his son also, a young son, to show him the wax toys that his friend used to make. But there was an altogether a different story. No more wax toys and candles all around. So he asked, now he remembers those things. So he asks his friend, what about those toys? Do you have any in stock? I can show it to my son. He said, no, I melt all those toys. He said, you melt them? You mean you destroyed them? He said, no, I melt them. The form has changed. It was, the wax was molded in the form of toys. Now the wax is not destroyed. Only a form was destroyed. Now I have converted it into, given it a new form, because that is what is needed. So he said, what do you do with that? He said, that lump of the wax that you are seeing is all that wax that I got after melting the toys. Now he is living in his memory. When he is guided by his memory, in that lump of melted wax, he will see the tail of the animals, the trunk of the elephant, the ears of the dogs. This is how the mind works. When a particular circumstance and situation comes, the memory is triggered off. So when he melt all the wax toys from an individual wax toy elephant or a group of elephant, it became some totality. In the spiritual realm, we call this collective. All the thoughts that you have not lived consciously remains in your memory and continues to bother you from time to time. All of a sudden you see something, that particular circumstance and situation has triggered something from deep within, creates disturbance in you. You are unable to understand why, seeing this particular person, certain feelings are arising in you. Somewhere in the deep past, you had left something incomplete. When problems arise in a relation, we abandon them. Like you are working on a file and you find there is a problem, you leave that file and do not bother about it. But over the weekend, it continues to linger on your mind and create disturbance. This is how the memories are. Memories of unfinished assignments. And just as he melted all the toys together and they are in the form of the lump of the wax, all the emotions, unfinished emotions, actions, thoughts, feelings, they are stored in the cosmic layer of unconscious. So when this man is taking up wax from the lump heap, it may have many things. It may have a part of dog's trunk. Dogs do not have trunk, I guess so. Elephants have trunk. So part of elephant's trunk, dog's tail might be there. So when this, as you're traversing along life's roads, in the same way, a part of the tail of the dog, a part of the body of the dinosaur, all these surfaces. And that makes it very difficult for you to understand what is this all I am getting. It's a confusion. Memory is confusion. And this is what is called collective unconscious. All different parts of the animals that you have melted means when life was coming to an end. When life comes to an end, a particular circumstance and situation is coming to an end, the residual remains goes to the cosmic, to the collective layer of unconsciousness and also to the cosmic layer of unconsciousness, and it remains there. When you enter into life again, as he had started the process of making the wax candles, a life is coming to begin. Part of this, part of that is put together to make a candle. So this is the unconscious and collective unconscious and cosmic unconscious. Try to understand it in another way. I have said conscious is the superficial part of the mind, which is lighted, and below this lies the unconscious, collective unconscious, and cosmic unconscious buried in the dark. Then below the unconscious lies the collective unconscious, and at the bottom lies the cosmic unconscious. The cosmic unconscious is the deepest layer. Above that is collective unconscious, and then unconscious. So collective and the cosmic unconsciousness remains below the 0 origin. You cannot see it below the surface. It is only in the process of meditation that these layers you are exposed to. And then you have to walk through in order to bring those things from the surface, from below the surface. And when you bring it to the light, the blossoming begins. The seed is planted in the darkness, in the womb of the earth. It remains there. And then when begins to sprout, it comes in the light, and another growth begins. The mind's entire universe is composed of these layers. And self-remembering happens at the level of cosmic mind, which is the ultimate in consciousness, but it has to explore things from within. To be in contact with the cosmic mind is what we call contacting the high. I will explain this with another example. When you meditate or you are in this commune, sitting in the listening to this live broadcast, first you come in contact with your individual unconscious mind. Then you begin your journey. You go through the collective layer, and then you come to the cosmic layer. But you arrive at the cosmic layer via collective unconscious, and once you are connected to the cosmic unconsciousness, your awareness goes a complete mutation. Then you cease to feel that you are part of the whole. Rather, you know that you and the whole are one. You are not the part of the total, but you are totality itself. When drop merges in the ocean, before merger the drop and the ocean were separate. But when the drop merges in the ocean and the drop are not separate from one another. The drop is part of the ocean. The wave is the part of the ocean. Through a certain mechanism, wave arises on the surface of the ocean. And then you suddenly remember who you are. This remembrance shoots up like an arrow from the depth of the cosmic unconsciousness and fills your conscious mind. Then you also know and know simultaneously that awareness that you are the ultimate, the supreme, is nothing new. It has always been with you, buried deep in your cosmic unconscious layer. For the purpose of explanation, I have divided the process of remembering into 4 parts just to make it easier for you to remember and for you to understand. When it comes to the path of love, which is endowed to Krishna, he does not divide, or he will never agree to this division. Nor do I. You are one whole. In fact, remembering our consciousness is nowhere fragmented. But to explain this, I have to explain, but there is no such classification like this. It's not fragmented. It is an integrated whole. The consciousness and unconsciousness are the extensions of same intelligence, which is one and indivisible. Truth and untruth are part of one ultimate reality, just like head and tail are part of one composite existence. Your innermost depth is one. Deep within you, we are all divine. We do not have to become divine. We have to discover our divinity. It is really a matter of recognition or self-remembrance. That's why the word is used, self-remembrance. You have to remember who you are. You have forgotten. The seer of the Upanishad says in the prayer, O son, please uncover the truth that is covered with gold. It simply means that truth is veiled and it has to be unveiled. Divinity is not to be achieved, but it has to be unveiled and recognized. And what is this veil? What is that veils the manifestation of divinity in you? It is your forgetfulness. It is your unconsciousness that covers the truth. You forget that everything that is happening in and around you has a reason behind it. I remember when I was around 16, my father's emphasis was that I study the science subjects to choose the profession as a medical doctor or as an engineer. But my interest was in none of these. It was a totally different interest. So the subjects like physics and chemistry were imposed. I failed. First attempt I failed, second attempt I failed. So when you are not able to achieve, there is pressure from the home. Decided that I want to go into the subjects like, want to explore what life is. The poetry, the sociology, this psychology. But when you choose those subjects, the employment opportunities were feeble. My father said and discussed that either you study the science subjects or you do not study. So my uncle, the Sufi master, wrote a letter, and in that he used a couplet. The couplet is not written anywhere, but it is written in the deep recesses of my heart, part of my remembrance. शायद खिज़ां से हो कोई नई सूरत बहार की. खिज़ां means autumn. In the scheme of existence, if you start from where you are, autumn, during that period all the leaves fall. It is in preparation for the upcoming winter season when there will be snow. The tree has to be protected. If the snow remains on the tree, stuck in the branches and the leaves and the foliage, it may damage the tree. How does tree which is exposed to the sun and moon and all kind of weather, how it can protect itself? So the leaves fall. And when the leaves fall, they gather around the tree and they decompose and help in the process of nourishment of the plant or the tree wherever they are. शायद खिज़ां से हो कोई नई सूरत बहार की. May autumn bring a new portrayal to the spring, because autumn is followed by spring. When winter is over, it is almost coming to an end, is the beginning of the season of spring, the season of joy, when there is all around beauty in its beauty has spread in its pristine essence. शायद खिज़ां से हो कोई नई सूरत बहार की. And each time when spring comes after the autumn, the tree is much more healthy and nourished. During the process of autumn, the gardener prepares the tree to be nourished and nurtured by pruning it, the unwanted branches, and it is he who knows that which of the branch is to be pruned. In the same way, as consciousness develops, all that is unwanted starts getting pruned out of your consciousness. And this happens in the process of meditation, and all that is unwanted is pruned out of your consciousness, and you are nourished and nurtured. And the next line says, कुछ मसलहत इसी में है मेरे परवरदिगार की. शायद खिज़ा से हो कोई नई सूरत बहार की. कुछ मसलहत इसी में है मेरे परवरदिगार की. Maslahat means a mystical will. Mystical, why? Because something that you do not know. You want to know what your father, what your mother intends doing for the day-to-day. Mother wants to give you a surprise for the dinner or lunch. You want to know what are you going to cook for lunch or dinner. You want to get everything exposed. But the divine will does not make you understand until it happens and you realize, oh wow, this is my favorite. How did you know that I was expecting, I wanted this particular dish today? This is the mystery. शायद खिज़ां से हो कोई नई सूरत बहार की. कुछ मसलहत इसी में है मेरे परवरदिगार की. What is the will of my master in this? I know it not. Trust comes in, you are flowing with it. And trust never betrays you. In fact, we make do with tiny part of our mind. A major part of it remains unused, unexplored. It is like a person who owns a big palace but lives in the porch. And he has become so accustomed to that porch that he has forgotten altogether that he owns a large palace with so many rooms, which is just behind. Really, there can be no porch without a house. Porch is only the entrance to the house, but you have forgotten the large house that your mind is, and you spend your whole life in the porch of consciousness. Our conscious mind is nothing but just like a porch. It is not that the conscious mind ever gets completely disconnected with the large part of the mind. Porch is not separate. It is connected to the house, but you have forgotten. It is not that the conscious ever gets completely disconnected with the larger part of the mind, the unconscious, the collective and the cosmic unconscious layer, but we never enter and explore it. So we get psychologically isolated from it, but deep within we know it is there. Entry into the depth of unconscious does not take place in stages. It always happens as a quantum leap, always happens like a quantum leap. Of course, we can discuss and understand the unconscious in terms of parts. Those who follow the path of spiritual discipline do so piece by piece. However, the path of love, the Krishna's path, does not accept the discipline. It says over and over again that we are already, that we ought to be Tattvamasi Shvetketu. You are that, you are. You already are that. The seed is already a flower. Only thing there is between the seed and the flower, there is a process. Seed is the possibility, carries infinite possibilities, and flower is the fruition of those possibilities. He says over and over again that we are already divine, but since we have forgotten it, we have only to remember it again. That is why the Upanishad repeatedly says it is just a matter of remembering. We have to remember who we are. So when this is the oft used Upanishadic injunction, Tattume Shvetketu, you are that, you are. It is not that you have lost godliness, you have only forgotten it. It is not that godliness is your future, which you have to become. It is sheer your forgetfulness, and that makes a great difference. Because spiritual discipline believes that you have lost something which you have to regain, or it thinks you have to become something which you are not. It is presumed that we have to use discipline in order to get rid of something which is wrong in us, and we have acquired through the wrong living. But in the process of remembering, we have neither to regain something nor to become something. We have to remember that which is forgotten. We are what we are, and it is divine. Nothing has to be added or subtracted, only a screen of forgetfulness, oblivion, dividing you from your real being, your divinity, has to be cleared. In the path of love, devotion is the foundation. Devotion is the foundation, and remembering is the basis to devotion. Meera says, I remembered those moments when I danced with Krishna on the bank of the blue river under the full moon night. The full moon, the bank of the river, the blue river, is a witness to all that. Yamuna ka cool kalindi, that the shore of the river Yamuna, the trees growing on the shore, the moonlight, the stars, the sky are all witness to all that has happened to me. But the devotee has forgotten remembering all together, and instead he has taken to chanting. He goes on chanting the name Ram, The Sanskrit word which is used for is Simran, remembrance, has been corrupted and it has become Sumiran or Surati. And these words have taken different connotations. Chanting Ram's name will not make you remember that you are Ram. Even if someone constantly repeats, I am God, it will not be the case of any use. Remembering has nothing to do with chanting or repetition of names, but constant repetition of name can create an illusion in you, and that normally happens. You will begin to believe that you are God, and belief system, all that you believe is illusory, because it remains confined to the conscious mind. It does not reach to the collective unconscious or cosmic unconscious layers. This belief will be illusory because it remains confined only to the conscious mind, while unconscious remains absolutely untouched by it. Then what is the process, the way of remembering? What is the technique? I see. How does remembering comes? Remembering comes through relaxation, through silence, through emptiness. You do not have to do anything to remember, because activity will hinder rather than help you to remember. When you are chanting something, it is an activity, and this activity will create the hindrance in the process of remembrance. A relaxed atmosphere, inner silence, and inner emptiness, the emptiness between two nodes, is necessary. You do not have to do anything to remember, because any activity, whether it is chanting or otherwise, will hinder the process. Chanting is not a spiritual process, but it is a toy that has been given to you, and you are constantly living with that, thinking that something is happening when you chant the mantra. It's not going to. By doing something, you can become something that you are not. If you want to become an engineer, you will have to do something to become it. Or you have to act if you want to possess a car by remembering. But remembering is an entirely different dimension. To remember something that you have forgotten, you have to sit still and quiet and do nothing. You remember, I had given you the example, you are trying to remember a particular name and you feel it is just on the surface. You know it. You know the name, but it is not surfacing, because in that process your mind is becoming tense. So one hand, the tension is created, and then you release it. You have to allow the tension to reach its pinnacle, and then you have to leave it. And in that gap between two opposites, you experience the emptiness. Doing will only obstruct remembering. In its deeper meaning, remembering is total inaction. In its true essence, remembrance is total inaction. That is why Krishna lays emphasis on akarma, or inaction. Inaction is his key word. Inaction in depth is his message. As I said earlier, even if you want to remember a friend's name, you cannot succeed as long as you continue to make efforts to remember. You have made your efforts and you left. You will never remember it as long as you go on straining your mind. The moment you relax, it happens. You will never remember as long as you go on straining the mind. Memory comes alive only when all efforts are lost. You become totally inactive. You are not making any effort. Totally inactive. Similarly, if you become totally inactive in depth, the memory buried in the cosmic unconsciousness will spring forth like an arrow from there and shoot up to your conscious mind. It is as if the flower seed buried in the soil has sprouted, and since it shoots up in the form of plant in your garden. And when the meter of remembering, the awareness arises from the cosmic unconsciousness and reaches and illumines your conscious mind, it has to come from your unconscious layer, the cosmic unconscious layer, and it shoots up to reach the conscious mind. You know who you are. So inaction is the key to remembering. As remembering is the key to devotion, on the other hand, action is the central to spiritual discipline. Two paths. In the path of spiritual discipline, action is important. And in the path of devotion, in the path of love, inaction is important. Only through action you can discipline yourself, achieve your goal, and through inaction you attain to devotion. It would be good to understand this particular aspect of inaction, which will continue in tomorrow's session. Until tomorrow, take care and do have a pleasant day.